When? Hi, welcome guys. Namaste. Namaste, everyone. And welcome to the channel again. We're reading Master Choa Kok Sui. Let me see if I can see that. This book here, The Spiritual Essence of Man, the Chakras and the Inverted Tree of Life. You can share. Okay, so last week we're still in Yesod, the sex chakra, sacred sex, and it's page 142. We spoke about Lord Krishna and Brahmacharya. There were some, divine union and sexual alchemy points that we made on the last video. So it's very cool. Check it out. And now we have sexual problems encountered in the spiritual path. That's the next section. We wanted to do that and then see next week, or if we have time, we'll do the transmutation of sex energy like we spoke about. So how to transmute sex energy is very, very, very important, very good. It's all in the book, and it has nice drawings. I don't know if you can see that on how to do it. So it's a great book. Anyway, also as a note, it was Master Choa's birthday. My spiritual teacher, Master Choa, it was his birthday. He left the physical body already, but it was his birthday on August 15th. So happy birthday, Master Choa. He's also the author of this book. Again, we're not going to read many books. It doesn't have to be all from the same author, but just a shout out to my teacher, whom without him I wouldn't know anything that I know, that I can share with you guys. Okay, so thanks to him. So let's just do a quick invocation, shall we? Just to start. To the Divine Supreme and Absolute God, to my spiritual teacher, to all spiritual teachers, holy angels, holy masters, to all the saints, and to all the great ones, to the Divine Lord Christ, and to all the spiritual helpers, spiritual elders, and all the divine beings of light. We humbly invoke for your divine guidance, divine love, for your illumination, divine oneness, divine help, and divine protection. Thank you for the priceless teachings, the understanding, harmony, and peace. For the divine healing, we thank you in full faith. Thank you. Okay, so sexual problems. So the author here says that there is an important factor in page 142. There's an important factor in spiritual practice that is not written in books, but which occurs frequently. That's interesting. So let's see what that is. During meditation, higher spiritual energy goes down to the sex chakra, Yesod, and basic chakra, Malkut, awakening the Kundalini energy or the fiery serpent at the base of the spine. Together with the spiritual energy, the Kundalini energy and some of the sex energy are brought up to the upper chakras and to the crown chakra, manifesting as divine bliss and eventually as illumination and divine oneness. Okay. When the meditator is sexually inhibited or has a negative attitude towards sex, the Kundalini and sex energy, instead of going up, will get stuck in the lower chakras. When this occurs, the person will experience intense sexual excitement accompanied by a dramatic change in the breathing pattern. Okay, on the other hand, it does not tend to occur if a person has a positive attitude towards sex. The solution is to realize that divine energy has come down to the sex and basic chakras. There is a lot of sex energy that can be transmuted into spiritual gasoline or spiritual energy. Once you utilize this priceless opportunity to bring up the sex energy or awaken Kundalini energy to the crown chakra, Keter, this will eventually manifest as bliss, illumination, and divine oneness. Okay, let me just a few points on this right here. So it says here that during meditation, higher spiritual energy goes down to the sex chakra, Yesod, and to the basic chakra, Malkut, right? So the base chakra and the sex chakra. And if we go to page 172, our favorite page, right? Because it has everything there. 172 and 173, because one is front and back. So on this page, right, you will see that in the front part you have the sex chakra, which is the bottommost chakra, and in the back part, the bottommost chakra is the basic chakra. They're both red, right? So then that's where you, so from the crown, the entry point of spiritual energy into the body at the top of the head, divine energy comes down into those two chakras, awakening the Kundalini energy. Okay.
Like a flow, right? It goes down and up, and up.
Yes. It's like a flow, yes, down and up. And so it awakening the Kundalini energy or the fire serpent at the base of the spine. Together, now do you see it says at the base of the spine? That's where the Kundalini energy is awakened, right? That's where it's awakened from, at the base of the spine, yes. So now, so then it says, together with the spiritual energy, the Kundalini energy, and some of the sex energy. So you have how many types of energy? 3 types. What are those? Spiritual energy? No, you can say it. I'm asking, that's why I'm asking. So spiritual energy, Kundalini energy, and sex energy, right? The sexual energy. All those 3 are brought up to the upper chakras and to the crown chakra. Does it say only to the crown? No, it's brought up to the upper chakras. And these energies nourish the upper chakras.
But so the sex energy travels up, or is it transmuted into Kundalini? Or
No, it's 3 types of energy. So Kundalini is different than sex energy, and it's different than spiritual energy. All of these 3 are unique. So the sex energy will be transmuted, obviously, as it goes through the heart, as it goes through the higher chakras. It becomes transmuted, like we saw last week, into love, into intimacy, love, and higher mental faculty, and spiritual, and spiritual oneness, right? So it gets transmuted, but it still goes up as and getting transmuted. But that's the sexual energy. Kundalini energy has, they all, like it says here, right, is for oneness and illumination, but at the same time, Kundalini energy has other purposes. One of them being is to upgrade your entire system, upgrade your other chakras, your brain, your body, your physical body gets upgraded. Why? Because you have, look at this. Let's say you have a 60-watt bulb, and you put it in a bulb that is 60 watt, a light bulb, right? And you put it in a socket. On that socket, let's say of light, you start running current for 40 watts. Can the 60-watt bulb take that amount of current? Yes, because it's less than what it can take, right? It's 40 watts. Then you decide you put more wattage through that. You upgrade your house, and now it's all 60 watts. Can the bulb still take 60 watts? Yes, it's made for 60 watts, and it still will light up. Then you start running 75. Will the bulb take it? Yes, I mean, we'll be working at, it won't last as long. Its life will be shortened because the filament is overworking. It's too hot, and maybe shortly after that it will blow out. But how about if you put 240 watts in on for the first time in that 60-watt bulb? It will blow it out. It's not going to even last. It's too much energy. The same thing happens to our physical body. The thing is that the spiritual path is a it's a it can be a dangerous path. If you're serious, I'm not talking about a weekend warrior spiritual path, I mean like when you get very serious, it can be very dangerous. So you need to be safe. You need to do it safely. There are ways to do it safely. So that's why it is always recommended to have a spiritual teacher, especially that is alive, right? Or someone or people that can guide you through the spiritual path, that have been there before, that are that are solid people in the spiritual path. So why? Because so that's why it's very precious, because you want to do it safely, and that's why Master Choa Kok Sui, the author of the book, the way that he let's say teaches or shows you the different techniques, they're very safe. They're made for safety first, because you need to be safe. Now some people say, oh, I want to connect straight to the 240. The body cannot take it, and sometimes when it's too much, it's too much. Like your body can sometimes get to to a point where it's irreparable. The damage is irreparable. So what you want to do is take care of your body so that you can grow for a long time in this lifetime, so that you can advance as much as you can. So part of the Kundalini energy is that even though sometimes you are meditating and you may not feel the fiery serpent going through your spine, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, but that's okay. That doesn't mean that it's not happening. So Kundalini energy is also being raised up. It's going through all the chakras, and it's upgrading all the chakras, and through that by virtue, right? Because the chakras are like power houses for they give energy to all the different organs in the body, in the system, and to the whole body. Like the basic chakra has to do with the skeletal system and the muscular system, right? The solar plexus chakra right here, right? By this, your solar plexus has to do with your stomach, right? It affects your diaphragm, your digestive system. It is partly responsible for the digestive system and many other things. Your liver, right? So all of those get also touched when the Kundalini energy goes by there, and so your entire body, your brain, is being upgraded by the Kundalini energy little by little, so that you can every time take more and more intense wattage or energy, you know, level or potency. So that way is when you do it like this, right? And there's you follow the meditation and the simple instructions. It's actually very safe, and you grow little by little, and you'll notice the changes, right? Have you guys noticed changes? Yes, right. So then you'll notice the changes. It happens little by little, and so that's part of the reason for the Kundalini energy, right? It has many other things, right? Also, and it also helps to build back a bridge. So you have divine energy coming down, right? That's the spiritual cord. That's what we spoke about last week. So you have, or the week before. So you have a cord that goes from your crown chakra. Well, it comes from above, right? But it enters, right, into the crown chakra. And so that cord is the spiritual cord. We'll read more about it later. But the part of the Kundalini energy is that you are also, not only this cord is when the energy comes down, but you also, when the energy is coming back up, there is actually energy coming back up. There is you're building a bridge of light And in Sanskrit, it's called Antakarana, it's called bridge of light. So you're building also the way back. Every lifetime, every time you reincarnate, you have to build that bridge again and again and again every time. But as you do it, right, of course, if you've done it in previous lifetime, it gets easier every time. So like when you practice something, it doesn't matter, you've done something so many times. Let's say you do origami, right? You make paper animals. The first time you're with the book or trying to follow step by step, and you mess up, this and that. But after you do it for many years, you can create your own origamis, right? Your own creations of different things that you can do with paper. And then you just do it in your sleep with your eyes closed. So it's the same thing here. So the more you do it, the easier it gets. So that's why some people have easier time in the spiritual path. But so this is basically what it is, right? Or are predisposed for this. So then you have all these different energies, and then spiritual energy that came down also is going back up. So all this different, and what is spiritual energy? Is energy with consciousness. It's divine energy with consciousness from the divine supreme being. So so yes, so I wanted to point that out. So divine energy is what it's like all the, like where we speak, where we have spoken before, all those old stories that are recurring, and this is good for you guys that are like into film and storytelling and things like that, is that you have the recurring stories of the fairy tales, right? So like Sleeping Beauty. All of these stories are esoteric stories, right, in nature. So what is Sleeping Beauty, right? So true love's kiss will wake Sleeping Beauty up, and that is basically the male energy. That's how they see it. It's not that it's male or female, because really the soul is sexless. But it's the yin and yang. Is the male and female is just a way of denoting duality, right? So is the yang energy, or the active energy, which is the spiritual energy coming down, and the sleep, that's the prince, and the Sleeping Beauty is what? Is the yin energy of the kundalini energy that is dormant, or that needs to be awakened. And so when the divine energy touches, right, reaches the kundalini energy, it awakens the kundalini energy, and so they both come up, right, with the sex energy as well, and they because they unite, right? So it's like the prince and they get married, or where they unite and they lived happily ever after, right? And it's true love's kiss. What is true love's kiss? True love's kiss is, what is true love? Divine love. True love is true love, is divine love, unconditional. Unconditional means unconditional, not conditioned. Not that if you are nice to me, I'm nice to you. That we have all these conditions for our relationships. This is unconditional. This is love no matter what. Divine love for all beings, whether they're good or bad. Like it says in the Bible, right? In Matthew chapter 5, that God shines his sun over the good and the bad, and makes it rain over the just and the unjust. Or like when they talk about Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of infinite compassion. It is said that his compassion reaches up to the depths of hell, and that there is no deed and no action that is beyond his compassion. And if that's the case for a Buddha, how much more for the Divine Supreme and Absolute God, whose compassion is even more absolute and great. So it is important to understand that aspect. That is that this whole thing. That is, and how do you reach that? Right, first through personal love, like we spoke about the meditation that we just did, Twin Hearts meditation. Right, we experience first personal love, and then we are aware of the heart chakra, and then we're aware of the crown chakra to be aware of universal love. How can you feel universal love or love for all beings, unconditional love, if you don't first feel personal love? So by doing this and opening the the crown chakra of universal love or unconditional love, divine energy comes down. Right? That's unconditional, true love. Is what does this. The divine energy comes down, right? Touches the Kundalini, touches and awakens the Kundalini energy, kisses the sleeping beauty, and then it rises up. It arises, and then they unite, and you achieve true happiness, which is true joy, which is enlightenment, oneness with all, and true bliss. Exactly. So that's from my story, and that's why like Joseph Campbell wrote that book, The Hero of Many Faces, and it's about perennial stories. And a lot of filmmakers use this book because it talks about stories that have archetypes, archetypal ideas that are about these archetypes, because we recognize that we are drawn to these stories, these concepts, because this is part of who we truly are. It's our true nature. So subconsciously, we are already attracted to these. That's why these stories never die. I mean, how old are these Sleeping Beauty story? And it's not because of Disney that that it became famous. It's way older. So, but there are many stories like that throughout history, and it's the same story again and again. Okay, so and it's what all fairy tales are about, is true love. It's just that we may have a different understanding of what true love really is. So then, okay, so I just wanted to make a point in that, right? But it says, now this is very potent, right? Because if you can achieve enlightenment, if you can achieve oneness with all things, how potent is that energy? It's super potent. And what does the sex energy, also part of the sex energy, do? Is like spiritual fuel. It's very volatile, right? Everybody here has felt sex energy, right? Before in your lifetime. It's very potent, right? So then understand. So it can be, but it can be used as spiritual fuel as well, like spiritual gasoline. So that's why all these three are mixed. So, but what happens? Like we said last week, proper attitude towards sex is important, because if we don't have a proper attitude, if our attitude is very puritanical or in nature, this is just using that as an adjective to describe that. So when the meditator is sexually inhibited or has a negative attitude towards sex, that they think is dirty, or that it should not happen, or all full of guilt and all these things, right? The Kundalini and sex energy, instead of going up, will get stuck in the lower chakras. When this occurs, the person will experience intense sexual excitement. Again, this energy is very potent. So when that happens, accompanied by a dramatic change in the breathing pattern. So think of this. In the spiritual path, you also see a lot of people are very sexually active, or there's a lot of scandal sometimes with people that are very spiritual. Why? Because imagine all these energies coming down constantly, activating these lower centers as well, the Kundalini energy, which the Kundalini energy enhances everything that is there. It's like fertilizer. So whatever is there, it will fertilize. Even even if you have a negative attitude towards something, it will fertilize that and enhance it. Also, the good that you have in you, it will enhance it. But that's why sometimes, imagine if the energy doesn't go up, it gets bigger, 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 bigger. It's gonna blow up at some point. Especially, this is very powerful energy. So we have to be careful. But if no one tells us, what can we do? And then we don't know why we do some, crazy things that we do. I mean, in general. But in this case, that's why there's a lot of sex and, scandals in the spiritual community. In any spiritual community, no matter what the word, it could be any religion, whatever. But there's why? Because these people are very devout. They're constantly meditating or praying or something. A lot of divine energy is coming down. You do that, it's normal, natural thing. It gets bigger, 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 bigger. And because if they have a negative attitude, imagine they're gonna blow up at some point. And sometimes it's not in the best way. So that's why it says here, on the other hand, it does not tend to occur if a person has a positive attitude towards sex. They think sex is natural, sex is good, but it must be done in moderation. Right? That's it. Has a positive attitude towards sex. Sex is good. Sex is natural. You make a lot of people happy, right? You make yourself and your partner happy. It's a natural good thing. It just should be done in moderation, like everything else, right? If you have sex all day, you don't work, you don't live, So it's better to do it in moderation so you can have it enjoy for a long time, right? For you the rest of your life. So on the other hand, it does not tend to occur if a person has a positive attitude towards sex. The solution is to realize that divine energy has come down to the sex and basic chakras, right? If this happens, right, like, because it can still happen even if you have a positive attitude towards sex, you sometimes may feel sexually aroused. That's okay. So it is like it says here, the solution is to realize that divine energy has come down to the sex and basic chakras. That means that there is a lot of sex energy that can be transmuted into spiritual gasoline or spiritual energy, which is very positive. One should utilize this priceless opportunity, because when it happens is you have an opportunity to take advantage of this, right? And it's priceless, to bring up the sex energy and awaken Kundalini energy to the crown chakra, Keter. I say crown chakra Keter because that's the name. It's Kabbalist, since this has to do with the Kabbalah. So that's the name for the crown chakra in the Kabbalah. This will eventually manifest as bliss, illumination, and divine oneness. Then it reads, when a person has a puritanical attitude towards sex, the sex energy and Kundalini energy get stuck in the lower chakras. Since the sex energy and Kundalini energy cannot move up to the upper chakras, the person may eventually be overwhelmed by the intense sex drive. As I said, it's very powerful energy. And by the divine energy makes it even more and more powerful, exponentially. Should this happen temporarily or for a prolonged period of time, she or he may become sexually promiscuous and overaggressive, with a voracious and unregulated sexual appetite. Several of the saints were like this before achieving sainthood. This also explains why some priests, nuns, monks, swamis, yogis, and other religious people experience intense sexual desire, which is very difficult to regulate. This may eventually manifest as sexual scandals. Clear? So it's basically what we just spoke about. It happens. It's normal. It's okay. The thing, of course, we want to be able to regulate it before it can get out of hand. And that's why positive attitude is important. And then sex transmutation is important. And that's that. And then the author continues reading. Religious people are not to be blamed. They are victims to a faulty religious system, not the culprits. The system requires them to be sexual celibates, but they are never taught how to transmute sex energy and the proper attitude towards sex. Two things that are important. It's not only to transmute sex energy, but also to have a positive attitude. It's not only to have a positive attitude, but also to transmit sex energy. If you're celibate or not, um, having relations with your partner, right? So it's very important. But even then, it is also even better to, even when you're having sexual relations, to transmute sex energy and have a positive attitude towards sex. You grow really quickly. So um, so it is impractical and harmful for them to practice, for them meaning the religious people. It is impractical and harmful for religious people to practice celibacy and not be taught the science and art of transmuting sex energy at the same time. They have been sexually and psychologically deformed because of the unrealistic and impractical demands imposed on them by the religious system. So, what does it say, sexually and psychologically deformed? So, the author means by sexually, like we spoke about last week, we spoke about celibacy and true celibacy, what it is. It's not generally what people think. So, if you guys want, please refer to the last video of last week so that you can hear at length. So in this case, on that video you understand, right, what it means here. Why have they been deformed? Because when there is a lot of energy coming down, right, they don't have a proper attitude towards sex and they're not transmitting the energy. Um, that, like it says, the sex chakra, that the person starts feeling a voracious appetite, and sexual and controlled sexual desire, and all of that. That's in the sex chakra, and at the same time, psychologically, that affects your higher chakras, which affects your psychology, in the sense that the sex chakra and sex energy is what nourishes the upper chakras. It's one of the is The sex energy nourishes the upper chakras, right? Which has to do with your mind. It has to do with your thoughts. And so if is the energy doesn't get there because of there's not proper attitude and no transmutation of sex energy, right? No proper attitude towards sex energy, or towards sex, sorry, then very little energy goes up. So the chakras are not nourished as much. So what happens when something is not nourished? When a plant is not nourished properly, right? It starts withering. Same thing happens. So that's why, as people may get older or whatever, they may experience dementia or different things if there's not proper attitude towards sex. If there's, I mean, that's not the only reason, but a possible, um, uh, a possible result. You understand? And so it is important to have that proper attitude and to also transmit sex energy. And that's why the author here says by the religious people have been sexually and psychologically deformed. Those that are asked to be celibate, etc., because of the unrealistic and impractical demands imposed on them by the religious system. So basically, what he's saying is the religious system has demands and on them and asks them to do certain things, but then they do not give them the tools to be able to do it, because by this time the religious system generally does not have the tools, right, or do not know about them. So um, it's, it is what it is. The so-called sex offenders should not be treated with harshness and severe criticism, but rather with understanding and compassion. They should undergo pranic psychotherapy and proper psychological counseling. Again, obviously, some of the sex offenses are terrible. We're not here condoning that, and we're not, and the author is, not here, but the author is not saying that he's condoning that or anything like that. But what he's saying is they shouldn't be treated with the harshness that they're treated. Like all the blame is on them, but also like when people plea, yeah, crime of passion, like they have insanity, temporary insanity or something, that the people plea in court, and they have a little bit more deference with them. That doesn't mean they don't get some, that they don't, something doesn't happen to them, that they don't have to pay for something they have done, but they're seen in a different light, not.
It's also stepping outside of things and viewing it from a
Correct.
uh,
Perspective.
perspective.
Yeah,
See that there's a root to
correct
that.
to that whole thing. And this is what the author is trying to say, so that we can see also in a greater light. And of course, you're close to a victim of this, or you are that victim. Of course, it's very difficult for that person. You have a lot of uh, hate to deal with, and different things that you may have to deal with. But you have to understand. But if even for them, it is healing if we try to understand it at a higher level and in the big picture of things. You understand? Like, there are many different levels of truth, and unfortunately, we sometimes only see only the lower levels, or the more direct or physical levels. But energy also have to deal. It's another level of truth, and other things. There are many levels of truth, and and they're all one in the grand scheme of things. But sometimes we just focus on a very small part, and we don't see the whole truth. Um, so the author then continues. So he says that the so-called sex offenders should undergo that are from religious or this kind of situation. They should undergo pranic psychotherapy and proper psychological counseling. And then he continues saying, it is easy to criticize and to judge, but it is difficult to understand, to show compassion, to love, and to serve. There is a tendency among people to focus on a few scandalous events and to forget and ignore the tremendous contributions made by churches and other religious organizations, like, right? He lists them here: orphanages, centers for abandoned women, hospitals, schools, and universities, and other centers engaged in charitable and humanitarian activities that generally they help the world. And they have helped countless people. All of these contributions are of tremendous benefits to society. It is a pity that some people from the media exaggerate and exploit issues of this nature just to generate wider circulation and higher sales. Some people tend to be ungrateful and even opportunistic by taking advantage of the psychological problems of religious people in exchange for financial considerations. Enough said. I don't really have to talk about this, right? We all know our world that we live in today. So, churches and religious organizations are not exactly blameless. This is what I was saying. He's not saying that he's exonerating this. So, churches and religious organizations are not exactly blameless. They should have not ignored and buried these problems, right? Because sometimes they choose to ignore them or bury them, so for fear of scandals and to not look bad. But that's not how you should handle anything, right? You should own up to things. Instead, they should have courageously, compassionately, and realistically addressed the issues and taken the proper necessary action. Burying one's head in the sand like an ostrich will not make the problems go away. So, what can they do? Teach proper attitude towards sex, not non-puritanical views, right? It's proper attitude towards sex. What is a proper attitude towards sex? Sex is good. Sex is natural. It is fantastic, but it should be done in moderation. That's that. And when I mean moderation, our levels of moderation can change, right? Can be different. 10 times a day might be moderate, right? For me, might not be moderate for you. It doesn't matter. But you need to have time to eat, work, take care of other things. You understand? You can be 24 hours a day doing this. That might not be moderate, right? So, um, but yes, but joking aside, sex is good. Sex is natural. It is fantastic, but it should be done in moderation. Um, and how to and sexual transmutation of sexual energy. Those two things would fix those issues, right? And it would help us in the spiritual path, so we may not fall into this situation, and which can happen to anybody that is serious in the spiritual path, and that's something. But these two things help: proper attitude and sex transmutation. How do you do sexual transmutation? Well, I'm glad you asked the question. Because that's right here in the book. It tells you how to do sex transmutation. We're not going to do it today. We're going to start next week. Next week we'll start. I'm going to leave this today because we're already over time. We took a little longer meditating today. But it has a lot of cool pictures. You can see them here. I don't know if you can see this. You have, and it has a good, easy to follow instructions, good pictures. We're gonna still do a video about this, so that because it's in the chapter, so we're gonna cover it next week. We're gonna so you can do it at home, follow us, and you can see us, and you can do it yourself, and techniques on sexual transmutation. So tune in next week for that, and then next week we'll also cover do not let us enter into temptation, that phrase from the Lord's Prayer, and why this chakra has to do with that, as part of the Lord's Prayer meditation and the Lord's Prayer um, that is done, and the ninth commandment and how this chakra has to do with that, and the divine name of Yesod. And then we'll probably start chapter 10, which is the Sleeping Beauty, the Fire Serpent Malkut Kingdom. So, yes. So, thank you. Do you guys have any questions before we close about what we? If you guys have any questions, please leave it in the comments below. Hit like, subscribe to the channel, as we have more videos coming up on different things, and leave us your comments, okay? And what do you think about the video? Anything else, or any questions? You guys, anything?
Did we review Kundalini syndrome already, right?
Kundalini syndrome.
Did
We maybe, but I really don't talk much about it. But we touch upon it. We can touch upon it. I don't know. We did, I believe, in the book.
so.
I think on the first video, I think we spoke about that. Yes, we spoke about that. I think on the first video of just maybe. If not, you can let us know in the comments that we didn't. So see all the videos and see if we did or not. But yes, but part of what we spoke about is really what Master Choa calls Kundalini syndrome, which is it's just basically when that happens, there's many types of Kundalini syndrome, but in this specific case, which has to do with uncontrollable, sexual urges, and that cannot be controlled, etc., is because of that. There's too much divine energy coming down, um, and there's not a positive attitude towards sex, and there hasn't been sexual, the energy hasn't been transmuted, and at the same time, and it can sometimes we may have a positive attitude, and we also are transmuting, but sometimes we're doing too much. Like there are a lot of spiritual practices, right? Very potent spiritual practices that require moderation. That's why Master Choa always talks about moderation, even in this case. And it's really so that you can have too much of a good thing, in the sense that if it's too potent, if it's, maybe you upgraded from a 60 watt bulb to a 240 watt bulb, but you're doing 400 watts, you're bringing into 400 watts because you're doing too many spiritual practices that are very potent. So that might still, so you might not be transmuting enough, and your attitude might not be enough. So in this case, that means that you probably need to just scale down on the amount of potent spiritual practice that you guys are doing, and then and continue. If you ever find yourself in this situation, right, which is, it can happen to anybody in the spiritual path, in a serious practitioner in the spiritual path, the best thing is to stop what you're doing. Stop meditating. Stop doing those spiritual practices. Take a break, right? Get contact, an advanced pranic healer, or a certified pranic healer, or someone that a very good healer, a pranic healer, or a spiritual healer, so that they can help you with that. But stop do not keep adding fuel to the fire. You need to, at that moment, you just need to take a break. I know we don't like to take breaks. We like to continue our practice and all that, but sometimes it's good to take a break if it's too much. You need to stop. So it's like if you have too much food in your mouth, and you're starting having difficult to chew, you can't keep putting food in your mouth because you won't be able to chew. So you need to just stop putting food in your mouth just until you can chew everything, and then get some healing. And once you're good, you can start your practice in a more moderate way, so that you don't get there again. So anyway, that's it. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, shall we close? So thank you for coming, and let's just do a quick invocation to close. To the Divine Supreme and Absolute God, to my spiritual teacher, to all spiritual teachers, holy angels, holy masters, and to all the saints, to Divine Lord Christ, and to all the great ones, we humbly invoke for your divine guidance, divine love, for your illumination. Thank you for the priceless blessings of love, of compassion, and loving kindness. Thank you for your priceless blessings of knowledge, for the priceless teachings, priceless blessings, and divine oneness with all. Thank you for the protection, guidance, and help. With thanks and for faith, so be it. Thank you. Thank you. Ama Namaste. Ama Namaste. Ama Namaste. 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 So, okay, thank you for coming, and I hope to see you guys next week.